Welcome everyone to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me as always. And I'm very excited to interview my guest today. Richard Lanigan is not only a skilled medium, an absolutely skilled healer or healing facilitator, and we're going to dive into that. But he's also a very wonderful human being who was one of the first people that recognized my gift and helped to mentor me on my path. So this just is like such an honor to be able to chat with him. And so with all of that, Richard, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much, and you're ever so kind because I'm so proud of you as to who you are and what you've become and what you do, the help you give to society. It's just awesome. I'm
Oh,
thrilled. I'm
thank
thrilled to
you.
be to sit and talk with you anytime.
That's so great. And I have to say, Richard, I remember in one of the first circles that I sat in with you, and this
Yes,
is when like things were happening to me and I didn't understand them. I
yes,
couldn't control it or anything. And I remember you taught me how to like turn the energy on and turn it off. And I remember we sat in circle and I was like, you were like, hey, what did everybody see? And I was like, I saw green and blue. And I
yeah,
thought it was ridiculous. And you're like, that's perfect. I'm like, or you had said like that was the beginning to opening to be able to control and see under my own
yeah.
timing. And I remember that was so, it stood out to me because it was one of the most validating moments. And I think of you every time I mentor someone else and they say, all I saw was color. And I'm like, you don't understand.
Yeah.
That is a beautiful thing. And so I think of you every time
Oh,
I
well,
say that.
that's so wonderful. And to all mediums that are looking in, if they are today, we must at some point we must, as we're learning, we must be in control of our mediumship.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's vital. Otherwise, you walk around open all day, or you never open up. Pardon me. So yeah, it's a very vital lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, I really want to focus today on the trance healing that you do and you offer, but just to give people a little taster as to what got you into this, do you have a couple experiences that really stood out for you that helped you realize your connection to spirit, which I think was most likely mediumship in the beginning?
Yeah, the mediumship. Well, since I was very young, I won't take time on it. Since I was 4 years of age, I had that. I knew I could know things. I couldn't see spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And that went on all my life. Growing up in Ireland, I did have to hold it back because it wasn't accepted there. When I came to Canada, and I was 23, and I still had the experiences, but I felt more free. And then Spirit did an amazing thing. They allowed me raise my family. When my last son was 18, I found a spiritual church. And that spiritual church had been here for 95 years in Edmonton, but I wasn't actually supposed to find it until then. And I joined the circle, um, and I started to learn to meditate and all of that. And so it's always been with me that way. Um, and so then it started making sense. 6 months after I joined the circle, I started to see spirit. And so it just went from there as the mediumship one. 28 years ago, spirit introduced me to spiritual healing. And um, it was amazing how they just showed me how to heal my son. And that was then I didn't even know about spiritual healing, Jeanette, because I'm still learning. I'm still learning what's about. I didn't know there was a spiritual church for God's sake. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, the healing of my son opened my eyes, so I looked into that. And what happened was once I started doing my early healings where I would just put my hands on people and ask for my guides to come in or sit and just send the healing to other people. And people would say, hey, I feel much better, yada, yada, yada. And this was the beginning. And then Spirit did something that I only realized what they were doing. I only realized about 2 years ago, Jeanette, which is 28 years later. Um, During the time, let's say when I was a rookie, a lady asked me to do healing for her in Texas, and I was here in Edmonton, and I did. But what they did was she never told me what she needed healing for, but and And I forgot to ask, so I just sent the healing. But as soon as I called in my healing guides, I was allowed view the whole healing with spirit doctors working on her. And it turned out she had multiple hernias, and after the healing, they were all gone.
Mm.
And so that was that. And then a few years later, they did it again, where a man went to hospital with cancer, 15% chance of coming home, and one healing, and he was healed totally. And then later in the year, he got brain cancer, and he was healed of that.
Mm.
And the only thing different was when I did this first healing that I became so hot doing it. I wanted to rip my clothes off, and Spirit said to me, "That's okay, it's validation. The patient is going to feel this heat as the healing comes." And I conferred with the patient, and he said yes. He was so warm, he wanted to throw all his bedclothes off, but he was healed. So then, Jeanette, I didn't have anything like that until about 2 years ago. And I always wondered, why did Spirit show me that and then stop it, or not continue or whatever? So I was puzzled. So then, going into this, I got interested in trance healing because I heard about it and thought they were saying that trance healing is even more potent because you take the human being out of it, the medium, and the healing comes directly from the spirit through the medium. But I'm in trance. I actually step out of my body. The
Mm-hmm.
spirit comes in, and so the healing is far better. So when I heard there was an improvement to healing, I was all for it. So I took the trance healing with a great, wonderful teacher from England, and I just seemed to take to it very easy. During this is interest you during our course, he asked all the students if they could see the healing coming in. And I wasn't sure. So I said, well, what I see, I said, it looks like it's raining and coming down through the page. And he says, that's exactly it.
Mm.
It looks like that. And so I said, oh, okay. Um, so then I started to do trance healing, and it was a huge improvement. And then what do I want to tell you? Um, yes, a year ago in May, all of a sudden, and of course, when we say I had this idea, we know that it's Spirit gave it to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I usually sit in the power as often as I can. So I was sitting in the power one Saturday, and I said to my healing team, I want to go really big with healing. If that, I want to go big. I want to um, have psychic surgery. I call it spiritual surgery happen. I want gene therapy and cellular level, all of this. So I said, this is what I want. And my guides never answered me. But 4 days later on a Wednesday, I had a reading set up with amazing medium in Edmonton. She belongs to our church, but anyway, um, I went for the reading, and the first thing she said to me was, "Oh, Richard, you're going to be expanding in your healing." And I just smiled to myself, right? She started saying, "You're now going to be working with the healing masters." And this is where this began. And so then I was all excited. So she told me all about it, and she told me how I had to go about it by um, calling on them, make an appointment with the client, find out what the client needs, tell my healing team so that the right healers, masters are brought in, and then make a date and a time with the client. And I would start the healing in my home here the same time as they would. I would have them lie down or sit, whatever it would be, quietly at the same time. And so the healing was being done with the circle connected, spirit, me, and the client. And so it was beautiful. And then I would just simply send a text when the healing was over, and the person just got a little ding. It didn't startle them, and also it didn't leave them sitting there all day.
Yeah, wondering.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the way it's been working. and it's worked very, very well. And what has happened is most of the healings have been 26 minutes. I still don't know exactly why, but all I ever came to with my silly mind was 2 and 6 or 8. That's the universal number. I don't know.
Hmm.
But there've been all that,
Yeah.
um, except for one recently where we did surgery on a lady who had blood clots, and it took an hour and a quarter, but she was totally healed.
Amazing.
And I watched the surgeons perform the healing. She's in Lethbridge, and I was here in Edmonton. Actually, I live in St. Albert.
Hmm.
So that one took a little longer, but then the surgeons were involved and all that, and they came in. So I'm blessed with Spirit have allowed me to see this as well.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's so interesting. I've had one particular experience that I remember where I was able to, I think Spirit brought me in to visually see what was happening
yeah,
while someone I knew that was having surgery and what the physical doctors were doing at the same time as what the spirit world was doing. And it was so neat. And so when you explain it the way you did, I can apply that to something I've experienced and say, I get it.
great.
That makes sense.
I know because sometimes it's hard when I tell people they kind of turn their head and go, "What?" And
Yeah.
I say, "Yeah." I say, I can see the hands working and all the rest of it, and I don't recognize the
Hmm.
surgeons, but they would be the surgeons on earth with Spirit working through them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I have a question for you. So because this is, and I want to talk a bit more about the trance state in a minute, but when you experience that your body gets really hot,
yes,
would you say that your body becomes almost like the interface for the healing the person will have?
yes.
Is that how you like it works? Because you don't have to be in the same room as the person. You heal people like you facilitate that at a distance.
I just did a healing for a lady, an amazing, which was great, medium, who teaches at the Arthur Findlay College. I did a healing for her yesterday, and she wrote back and said, "Oh my God, it was amazing." So
Hmm.
yes, there is no barrier to Spirit. You can send it all over the world.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, 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 that's great. And that for those watching or listening, Arthur Findlay College is a really, really well-known and respected college to educate people on healing practices, mediumship, all of that. So that's a really beautiful thing for you to be able to talk about.
Yeah,
Now, the other thing I want to say too is if we could dive into a little more about trance, because
yeah.
people hear the term trance. Maybe some people haven't heard about it, but how would you describe trance state? And then what is it you have to do to go into it?
Okay, and so of course, like anything else, you learn. That's why I had this amazing teacher, and he doesn't mind. His name is Chris Page. He's in England. He's also 71 years of age now, but see, he's been healing for 50 years. And so I took the course with him. So it's a little different. So what you do is you learn to actually, and this is the short version, but it's exactly how it happens. You learn to relinquish yourself to Spirit. You actually step out and you allow them to come in and use all of your faculties. For instance, when I do healing, I take my glasses off because the healers don't have a prescription, but I do, and they need to use my physical eyes. Need to use my hands, my nose, mouth, vocal cords, all of that. So literally, you train yourself. You do it in stages to let them in about a quarter into your scene and get comfortable, and then go back out, and then halfway and 3/4, and then fully. One of the key things I would say to you is that Chris Page taught me to never give it fully, give it 99.99%. And there's a little piece of you left still there. Um, and he said, just in case that you may get lost. So to try and explain it to people, I have now, and anybody can learn this. I have learned to just step out of my body, and in those early stages of trance, I would just take myself somewhere because I'm now not taking part in the healing. I've handed it over to the spirit healers, and they use my faculties.
Mm-hmm.
And what I used to do, Jeanette, and still do if I do it that way, I would just go to somewhere that I love, and so I'd take myself in my mind off to Jasper, and
Beautiful.
I would just hang out there, and I love it. And actually, once or twice when I was there, when healing was going on, Spirit taught me some lessons when I was in Jasper. Like it sounds amazing, and it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, you learn to step out of your body and give the spirit guides, the healers, control of your body. And you
Mm-hmm.
cannot be, you do learn also that there's nothing to fear because we're working with our higher self always.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been afraid of spirit enemy, so to me it's easy that way. But there's no fear involved, and then it's really funny, Jeanette, because I'm not involved. I get an inner knowing, or yeah, an inner knowing that okay, the healing's over, and I step back in,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm never wrong. But that again is prompting from spirit,
Yeah.
letting me know. And so I come back in, they move back out. I then just simply thank them very much, and the healing's done.
Yeah.
And then it's only after that I'll hear back from the client what happened, what did they experience, etc.
Right. So
Does
then,
that, yeah, does
yeah,
that do it?
that explains it beautifully. So would you say trance would be similar to channeled healing? Would you say those two terms are
Trance to do what though?
like trance healing would be, you could also call it channeled healing because you're channeling spirit energy through you?
No, I don't think I compare it to channeling. I think they're two different things because you actually leave your body and give it over to spirit.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Yeah, because I was curious, because I know when I'm channeling spirit for messages,
yes,
I feel it like a merge. Like
yeah,
I feel like in mediumship, I feel like they're telling me something, I get it, I give it.
yes,
With
yes,
channeling, I feel we merge together and create like a partnership. And the way you're describing trance seems
yeah.
like it's further,
I,
something
it
more.
might be a little bit further, but I think as you explained that to me about channeling, because I don't think I actually do that. So, the way you're explaining it too is it's probably very close to trance. It's
Hmm.
I think it's on the same pathway.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. Yeah,
Okay.
because
Interesting.
the merging is very good, and you have to be cooperative.
Yes. And it is this surrender, like you talked about. Like I have to get out of the way for
Yes,
it to happen. And then when you said, like, it's over, I get the same. Like I just suddenly feel like it's done and I'm
yes,
back.
yes.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting.
So sorry, if you have more questions on that,
I do actually. I would love to hear. I would love to hear if you have any stories, any healing stories that really stand out, either one or two stories that you've had.
well, the first one is to me still amazing because two things happened, and one of them I didn't realize. Um, and it's something I want to work towards now, which is physical mediumship. Anyway, it's funny what happened. So the lady that gave me the reading, her name is Michelle. I don't want to give her full name because she's very private. But so when Michelle gave me the reading and told me I was to work with the masters and all, I thought, well, I have to learn now to work with these. And so I asked her if she would allow me to do a healing for her. And she said, yeah, of course. So we made an appointment for the next week on a Wednesday, and it was before our circle. So we went into the church early into my healing room, and this lady was a teacher all her life. Her right hand, because she was always writing on a blackboard, the chalk, and also writing continually, her her finger was like that, right? And her thumb on that hand was 3 times the size it should be.
Mm.
And so she was at the point she couldn't write anymore, right? A lot of things she couldn't do. So she simply said to me, I'd love to have healing for this. And she said it's been diagnosed as severe arthritis. I said, okay. So then I did what she told me, what the information she got from Spirit. So we set up, I called in my healing team. I had made the appointment with them the day before. I just say, we're going to do healing tomorrow at this time for Michelle, and we need healers for arthritis.
Mm-hmm.
So we went and did the healing. The amazing thing that happened, and I didn't understand it at the time, I was just thinking healing, was that this lady's hand moved off the bed, and then it moved up in the air, and if people can see, it turned sideways. Her fingers opened like this twice, and they took her thumb and turned it. And I was ready to scream myself. I thought, oh my God, she's going to die with this. You shouldn't be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So they did that process twice, and then her hand came back down, moved in, and lay on the bed beside her. And this is new to me, so I said, what now? So I asked Spirit, is the healing over? And her hand just came up about 3 inches off the bed like that and went down again. So that to me was yes. So then I thanked my healing team and I called her back. It took her about a minute. And when she came back, um, she was sitting up in the bed and she was talking to me. And she said um, she just saw all this really bright light around her all the time. I said, did you know your hand moved? She said, no, I hadn't got a clue.
Mm.
So then she looks at the door in the little room and she jumps off the bed and runs over. And I said, where are you going? I didn't know what she was doing. So she went over and turned the knob of the door and opened it and closed it again and turned it again. I go, what are you doing? She said, I haven't been able to do that in 13 years.
Wow.
So then she said, look at my hand, Richard. It's perfectly straight. Her thumb is back to normal. And her arthritis is gone. And that's a year ago now. So that was the one that stood out. But what I learned now about that one was because she didn't even know her hand moved and she felt nothing. Um it actually was, they showed me it was physical healing. And how they do that, and you probably know this, but I'll explain for your audience. We have a spiritual body, an etheric body, um, we have an aura, an auric field, an auric body, a physical body, a spiritual body, an etheric body, right? Etheric body and then spiritual. So spirit raises up the etheric body. They do everything that's necessary. They do all the surgeries on that and everything, and the patient doesn't feel it. They place the etheric body back on the physical body, and everything is transferred. Everything that happens is transferred. And that's why you can see surgeries being done, and there's no stitches, there's no nothing, there's no scars.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, I believe, is what happened that day, because she had no clue, no pain, no nothing, and yet her hand was totally healed.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually got to see spirit heal the etheric body.
Yep.
It was her etheric body I seen, but I didn't know that.
Yeah. I've seen something similar to that before in Spirit explaining certain concepts to me. And they explained the etheric body like the hologram.
Yes,
I would say it's the same thing.
exactly.
And in that hologram etheric body, they create the right frequency of how it should be, and then they overlay it onto the physical, and the physical cells and structure desire to replicate what the hologram or the etheric body is. So I completely get what you're saying.
Exactly. And that's why what was I going to say to you? Yeah, there's no anesthetics, there's no scars, there's nothing. And the etheric body is an exact replica of the physical body, and a hologram is a great way to explain it. And so that was fascinating, and I'm wondering if down the road they're going to do more of that with me. I sure hope so.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other neat one I want to tell you, because the lady wrote to the church asking for them to put it on a website. So this is a great thing about how spirit works as well. So I went to bed one night and it was one of those days where I had no lunch. So I stuffed myself at dinner time. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
I was so full when I went to bed anyways, but my phone rang at 11 o'clock and I don't bring my cell phone to my bed. I leave it in the kitchen plugged in overnight. And my wife and I actually heard it and I said, I'm not going to answer that, right? You know, because you're on call all the time, right? Basically, but
Yeah.
enough is enough. So I didn't answer it. And 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I was completely famished. I was starving. It shouldn't be. And I go, if I don't eat something, I won't be able to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So I got up and I told my wife, I'm just going to have a couple of plain cookies because I need to. So when I was in the kitchen, I looked at my phone and it was a call from a friend of mine in Spruce Grove. It's just outside Edmonton, asking me to do healing for this lady in Lethbridge, who's a friend of hers. And I felt terrible then. I go, oh my God, right? So she went on to tell me that this lady in Lethbridge was rushed to hospital with blood clots. And she was in a really bad state. So anyway, it's now about 3:45 in the morning when I'm going through all this. So she'd asked would I do healing. So I immediately said, of course I will. I didn't text the lady back because it's too late now. So I just went and I did the healing, and that's the one took about an hour and a quarter. And I saw the surgeons working on her and everything. And now it finished at 5 o'clock. So I sent a text to the lady in Edmonton saying what had happened when I did the healing, and I hoped everything would be fine. And so she texted me back at 10 o'clock the next morning saying, thank you so much. And she said the patient um, had an amazing experience, but she said, hopefully you can follow this. This lady in Spruce Grove explained to her what I had seen and what I'd done. And um, so the lady had such an experience. She said she didn't want to go to her friend anymore. She wanted to speak to me. So she called me at 1 o'clock that day and she said they had scheduled a scan for 11 that morning. And when they went and did the scan, she was completely clear. There was no clots anywhere. Everything was good. She also said something very interesting because she wanted to know what I saw. And I told her, I said, they were actually working on your heart area and all of that. And then she went on to say that it was amazing. The doctors were baffled as to why there's nothing there. She was cleared and went home, and she's fine today. And she also said, though, Ginette, this is really interesting. While that healing was going on, she went on a little journey back in her ancestry, and there was heart disease in all of her family. And she felt that healing was taking place for all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know much more about that. Anyway, that is another healing that stood out that was phenomenal, and how spirit got me actually to go and do it when I had said no. They made me
Mm-hmm.
hungry. So
I
it's
know.
another miracle of spirit, right?
Isn't it so neat how they make those things happen? Like even when we try to resist something, they'll make it happen. And I find that actually to be very comforting because
Yes,
it's so often, if we're meant to know something, if we're meant to be somewhere, if we're meant to intervene on something,
yes.
we will be uh, we will be told, shown something
We'll be
to get our
guided.
attention. Yeah, we'll be guided there. And that it really is true. And so that's a great example of it. I
It is.
totally get that.
Absolutely. And so I have recently done a healing for, I'll just tell you one more, a lady in Ireland.
Mhm.
And she had a mass of cancer on her uterus. And her sister lives right here beside me in St. Albert and came to me and said, my sister's going into the doctors tomorrow for another scan and they're going to decide what to do, how to attack this cancer. She said, Richard, would you do healing? I said, of course. But then I didn't get a chance to talk with this lady. So I just said, okay. And she was open to the healing, or her sister had talked to her. So at 5 o'clock in Edmonton, I heard about this at 3 o'clock. 5 o'clock Edmonton time is midnight in Ireland. So I decided I would do the healing then because I had permission, hoping that the lady in Ireland was in bed and lying quietly.
Mm-hmm.
But she's going to the doctor in the morning, right? So I did the healing, and I must say I didn't see anything this time. I just knew it was happening, and so it was really funny. So that was a Sunday. So Monday morning, I'm hoping to hear back nothing. So Thursday that week, I phoned this lady in St. Albans saying, "Hey, did you hear from your sister?" And she goes, she's a bit of a featherhead. She said, "Oh yeah." I said, "So what happened?" She said, "Well," she said, "you would have loved to been there because they had all these scans. They took the scan in the morning, and there was no cancer, all gone. That
Wow.
was half an hour healing." And uh, the lady said that she couldn't really sleep that night because she was very nervous, but she did say there was a lot of rumblings going on in her tummy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, she was completely healed. And so there's been quite a few cancers that have been healed.
Yeah, that's
It's
amazing.
it's it's amazing. I'm just so grateful that Spirit is allowing me to be part of this.
Yeah.
So I'm just a medium, but they do amazing work.
So here's a question for you. And I mean, I understand the reasons from my side, but for those listening, what's your understanding when people come to you for healing and they don't get the healing in the way in which they're wanting it? So say they have cancer
Yeah,
and it is not healed and completely removed. What happens in those situations, or what could you say about that?
yeah, it does. And I wanted to, you and I are psychic for a reason.
Right.
I have written down here, if you can see how you can't, how healing fails.
Yeah, okay.
All right, there's three reasons. The first one, Jeanette, is that if you have a person that comes to you for a healing, but their spirit is not evolved enough. So let's say you have a spirit that is not aware that they can receive spiritual healing, that there's such a thing, then no healing is going to take place. That's number one.
Hmm.
Number two is most people, I think, by now would have learned that we come to Earth to learn lessons. We have what some people call it a contract, whatever. But we do come to Earth with a list of things we want to do and experience, and that helps our spirit evolve. That's why we come here. And so if someone has in their contract, we'll say that they want to leave Earth by having a disease and they die from it and they have the experience, then they wanted that experience, then the spirit healers will never interfere with someone's contract.
Hmm.
That's number two. They never will because that is your right and my right. So there won't be any interference. And the third one is very important, and I'll tell you why in a second. The third one is an un an un an unevolved medium. There's too many people, Jeanette, and I know it, your teaching and everything, you've come across them. There's too many people take a liking to something, take a course, and then run with it without being developed. I should have said an undeveloped medium. That's what I meant.
Hmm.
And so they're all excited and they've got good intentions, but they haven't put the work in. And that's the only other one.
Hmm.
So that's what I do know happens and can happen. Um, and oh, I should add in, I give an example to some people too. So let's say somebody comes for you and they say, you know what, every winter or I keep getting pneumonia, right? And so you give them a healing, and 2 weeks later they're back. I was healed for 2 weeks, Richard, and then I got pneumonia again. And then you have a little talk with them and say, okay, where do you live? What do you do? Yada, yada, yada. And you'll find, just as an example,
Hmm.
that this person lives in a really damp basement suite. And so they get healing and they go back to the same situation where they got hurt. So that will be
Hmm.
evolved.
Yeah, that's very true. All valid. All valid.
Because
Absolutely.
because you see, we also spirit tells you when you come for a healing, it's more than a one-way street. You give your permission, but you have to do your part.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. That's so well said. Thank you. So
Okay.
within the healing, Richard, you are talking about that you are starting or have already created a 7-step program that you are teaching.
Yes, I just finished writing it, and I'm going to be teaching it. I hope to teach it everywhere, all over Canada, all over the world. It doesn't matter because it's so unique, and it's going to be called Healing from the Light.
Nice. Beautiful.
Because yeah, I'll give you a little secret. You've heard about uh, sitting in the power,
Hmm.
and a lot of mediums sit in the power. I do for my mediumship and all that, and I love it because it's so beautiful and peaceful anyway. So for healing, and this came from spirit directly to me, for healing and to get to blend with your healing team so that you eventually work as one, which is what we want to. They tell you to sit in the light. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the light and love of the infinite source.
Yeah,
And what they told me, you'll love this, the light is the healing and love is the carrier of it.
that makes sense. That
You
fits.
like that?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense. And it aligns too with a lot of things that I've been talking about in like parallel to that of the power of the healing of the sun, of sitting in the light and feeling the energy of love, right? Like it's yeah. I understand what you're saying. And it sounds simple. And in fact, it is simple, but sometimes I think we overcomplicate the way in which we need to get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Even in all mediumship, if you think about it, Jeanette, even when we're starting as communicating mediums, it is actually very simple, but we make it hard.
Hmm.
Before the first thing we did when we got our first message was, "Oh, did I make that up?"
Yeah.
Instead of trusting. Trust is huge, as you know, and
Hmm.
so yeah, we make it hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what I'm going to do with this healing program, because Spirit has told me that I have now, after all the years, reached that level to work with the master healers. So it's like, and this will be what I'll be doing for the rest of my life. Okay, it's like I've earned my degree. So the program I'm writing will include all of this, but not everybody will be able to do it the same way I do it. Not initially, anyway. But the program is going to include to teach people different processes of how to get there, how to blend with your healers, and that your goal should be to eventually work with the healing masters.
Hmm.
And I'll teach them all of that. And the groundwork they gave me was fascinating. They asked me to go to the center of the earth, as deep down as I could, and that there's amazing creation goes on there that we don't think about. We have the sacred fire there. And from that, we have precious metals like gold and platinum created. We have diamonds and crystals. They all come from that part of the earth. So this is where I ground myself and then raise myself up to the highest vibration of the infinite source. And
Wow.
that's where I join my healing team.
That's a definite power source for sure. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
One
Yeah.
of the things that happened, I might say to you, and because it might happen to other people, and I had no idea why this happened, but every time that I sit for healing, I ground myself. I just sit in my chair like this. I ground myself. As a matter of fact, this is my healing room. So, um, I ground myself. I do all my process. I raise up. Um, I acknowledge when I'm passing from the center of the earth, when I come to the earth's surface, that this is the sacred space that I hold for healing, for them to bring the healing to earth. And then I go to the highest point. But once the healing starts, my two hands come up like this. I don't raise them. I don't do it. It just comes up. And when the healing is over, they just gently drop down. And it
Hmm.
signals from spirit. I want you to know that both my shoulders, rotator cuffs are torn completely. And so if I was to do this now, I probably a minute I'd have to drop my hands.
Right.
but spirit supports me for that.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's beautiful.
yeah,
I love it. Well, this has been so informative, so interesting, and I really hope that people listening do take advantage of the opportunity to work with you. And again,
yeah,
I'll put all the links below, whether that be through Avalon, St. Bridget's,
yeah.
in person, distance, teaching, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
It'll all be in the links below. So I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your understandings, your knowledge. And I mean, honestly, we only tapped the very surface of your knowledge. Your knowledge is so vast. So
Yeah,
I really recommend anyone connecting with you however they can. So
yeah.
yeah, thank you again, Richard, for coming on the show.
My pleasure. And
Yeah.
I still can't get over it. Well, I should say this a different way. It's amazing how after all these years, where you are, where I am, and you've brought me on this podcast, I never would have dreamed.
Oh, that's, ah,
Here you are, right? And so, thanks to you, you're an amazing young woman,
oh,
beautiful, beautiful spiritual lady, and thank you.
ah. Well, that's lovely. All right. Well, thank
Yes,
you. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoy. Check out Richard's work, and we'll see you all next week.
thank you.